Hello, my name's Dan Owen, and this is Break It Down. So get your Greek New Testament or get your English New Testament, and let's open it up and break down a passage together today. Follow along in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, beginning with verse 9. Today we're going to talk about two kinds of things and two kinds of people. First, let's talk about things. In the couple of verses before this, starting with verse 6, Paul's talking about speaking the wisdom of God, a wisdom that has been hidden for ages, but now has been revealed. Then describing that wisdom, he says in verse 9, things which no eye has seen and no ear has heard, and have never entered into the heart of man, things which God prepared for those that love him. But to us, God revealed them. So what did God reveal? See, God revealed things which no eye has ever seen. To us, God revealed them through the Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yes, the deep things of God. So let's notice the deep things of God. These are the same as these things up here, okay? For who knows the things of a man except the spirit of the man that is in him? So also no one knows the things of God except the Spirit of God. So notice that the things of God and the deep things of God and the things which God has prepared for those that love him and the things that no eye has seen, these are all the same things. Now, if we continue going through the passage, we're still talking about things. If you go down with me to verse 12, he says, but we have not received the Spirit that is of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so that we might know the things freely given to us by God. And of course, these things freely given to us by God are the things that we've been talking about since verse 9, all these neuter plurals. Verse 13 starts out, which things, and if you'll go back up and compare verse 9 and following, you'll see these things referred to all the way down. And then finally in verse 13, it says bringing spiritual things. These spiritual things are the same as these things, are the same as these things, and they are the same as the things of God and the deep things of God and the things that we see back up here in verse 9. So first of all, if you get this firmly in your mind, this passage is about spiritual things. Secondly, understand here in the passage that these spiritual things can only be known, that is, through the Spirit of God. Notice in our passage, in verse 10, to us God revealed them by the Spirit, through the Spirit. Because it's the Spirit that knows everything or searches everything, even the deep things of God. And down in the following verses, notice that no one knows these things of God except the Spirit of God. See? Only the spirit of a man knows what's inside the man's mind. Only the Spirit of God knows what's inside God's mind. So these spiritual things are only revealed to man by the Spirit of God. Now let's continue through our passage. as we go down to verse 12, notice that we have received, says Paul, the Spirit of God, which he's talked about in those earlier verses, so that we might know the things freely given to us by God. See, that's that divine wisdom, those spiritual things. Then verse 13, which things, that is, the things given to us by God, the things revealed by the Spirit of God, we also speak. Not, this word not here goes back to the word speak. See, we do not speak these things in words taught by human wisdom. Now remember, as we began the entire passage in verse 6 and following, he talked about this divine wisdom, this wisdom that comes only from God. And so these words that Paul says we speak are not in words taught by human wisdom. See, not taught by human wisdom. But, notice the contrast between not and but. See, they were not taught by human wisdom, not in words taught by human wisdom, but in, you have to take the word words here, but in logos, words taught by the Spirit. See, again, as in the previous verses, it's the Holy Spirit which teaches Paul these things of God and what to say. And then finally, he says, explaining spiritual things, spiritual things. Remember that those things we've been following down all the way from verse 9. Explaining spiritual things, and notice this part. Pneumatikos. To spiritual. Some translations translate this in spiritual. But the question remains, spiritual what? Okay? So Paul has clearly said that spiritual things are being revealed to him through the Holy Spirit, and he's speaking those spiritual things as the Holy Spirit has taught him to speak, and he's speaking those words taught to him by the Holy Spirit. But then let's keep going into the next verse, because context is not just what comes before, but what comes after. So immediately Paul begins talking about types of people. For, he says, the natural man does not accept, notice, the things of the Spirit of God. Now, all the way since verse 9, we've been talking about these things. These spiritual things that only God reveals. But notice, the natural man does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot know them because they are spiritually discerned. But notice, but he that is spiritual, he that is spiritual. Notice here and here, we have two kinds of people. The natural man who does not accept or welcome these spiritual things. The spiritual man who does discern and accept these spiritual things. But the real nail in the coffin is in exegesis here, is down here in chapter 3, verse 1. He says, I, brothers, could not speak to you as pneumatikos, to spiritual people. Notice that word pneumatikos, comparing here to this word pneumatikos. See, the spiritual person. These are the same, okay? But I couldn't speak to you as to spiritual, but as to fleshly, as to babes. Notice all of these are dative in case. Now, the fleshly person is the same as the natural person. These babes that haven't matured are the same as the natural person up here. So there's two kinds of people here. There's people who accept the things revealed by the Spirit of God, and people that reject the things that are revealed by the Spirit of God. So if we go back here to the verse that we're kind of centering on, which is chapter 2, verse 13, this pneumatikos, especially if you compare chapter 3, verse 1, if you look at pneumatikos in 3:1, he's talking about spiritual people as opposed to natural or carnal people. So 2:13 should be translated at the end, explaining spiritual things to spiritual people. See? So, as we review this, there are spiritual things that have been hidden for ages that God has revealed through his Holy Spirit to his apostles. These spiritual things are only known by the Spirit of God and have to be revealed by the Spirit of God. Natural or carnal people do not accept revealed wisdom from God, but spiritual people do. Are you a spiritual person that accepts and respects divine revelation as you see it in the teachings of the apostles and prophets in the New Testament? Or are you a carnal person who prefers human wisdom over the divine? This is our analysis of this passage. I hope it helps you as it has helped me. I'm Dan Owen, and this is Break It Down.